Northeast Florida and Southeast Georgia aviation weather summary. Dominant high pressure is building northward through tonight, maintaining widespread subsidence and dry air across the region. This results in persistent clear skies with unrestricted ceilings and visibility, excellent conditions for aviation. Winds will gradually veer from northwest to northeast overnight, promoting a shallow onshore flow that will enhance the marine layer along the coast. Coastal areas will stay relatively warmer overnight, whereas interior zones will cool significantly under radiational cooling, creating minor low-level thermal gradients, but no associated ceiling or fog concerns. For Thursday and Friday, the area remains under the influence of dry ridging. Easterly to southeasterly surface winds will dominate, light to moderate in strength, with daytime sea breezes developing along the Atlantic coast, potentially leading to localized gustiness near the shore, particularly in the afternoon hours. No convective activity or precipitation is anticipated during this period, and skies remain mostly clear with widely scattered fair weather cumulus possible, more concentrated near the coast during peak heating. Vertical development will remain shallow due to limited moisture aloft. These conditions foster continued visual flight conditions with no significant restrictions to ceiling or visibility expected. Looking toward the weekend and early next week, daytime heating and persistent southeasterly winds will gradually return some low-level moisture. Coastal temperatures rise into the low to mid-80s, and inland areas approach the upper 80s. While still generally VFR through Sunday, the atmosphere trends toward increasing instability by Monday. A frontal boundary approaching from the northwest will enhance lift, and by Tuesday, with atmospheric moisture deepening, there is a slight chance of isolated inland thunderstorms. Convective development would be diurnally driven, likely confined to the afternoon, with associated brief reductions in visibility and possible convective turbulence, particularly in southeast Georgia. No widespread organized convective threat is noted at this time, and ceilings will remain VFR through the forecast period. Winds throughout the period remain below operational thresholds for concern, though the coastal sea breeze may introduce gusts in the 15 to 20 knot range during afternoon transitions.
Florida Keys Aviation Weather Summary. The region sits in a transition zone, following a period of relatively calm and clear weather. A weakening cold front is sliding southward through the area tonight, with minimal impact expected aside from a subtle shift in surface winds from the northwest. Behind the front, high pressure will rapidly reestablish from the north, setting the stage for significant changes through the latter part of the week. Thursday evening, the atmosphere remains dry and stable, yielding excellent visibility and no threat of cloud cover impacting ceiling minimums. Fair weather cumulus observed earlier is already dissipating, and no low-level moisture return is anticipated in the near term. Both commercial and general aviation operations can expect visual conditions with unrestricted ceilings and minimal turbulence. Thursday night and lasting through the weekend, a tightening pressure gradient associated with the strengthening high over the western Atlantic will drive sustained easterly surface winds, increasing to fresh and locally strong levels. Gusts are likely to become operationally significant, particularly for smaller aircraft and rotary operations. While convection remains absent, pilots should expect moderate mechanical turbulence below 5,000 feet, especially during descent or departure through the friction layer. Despite increasing wind, moisture profiles remain shallow through Friday, limiting the potential for cloud development or precipitation. Deeper moisture may return by late weekend, but prevailing mid-level subsidence from ridging aloft will suppress convective growth, maintaining favorable flying conditions into early next week. Still, the persistent easterly breeze could lead to localized marine layer cloud development, especially in early morning hours, though any associated ceilings are expected to remain above visual flight rules thresholds. In summary, no restrictions to ceiling or visibility are forecast, but escalating wind magnitudes beginning Thursday night may warrant operational considerations, particularly for approach and departure at low altitudes and for general aviation activities.
South Florida Aviation Weather Summary. Dry and stable conditions are dominating across the region as a weak and largely indistinct frontal boundary exits the area, replaced swiftly by a strengthening high-pressure system over the western Atlantic. Despite the frontal passage, there is no meaningful air mass change. Dew points and temperatures remain largely consistent, and the vertical profile shows a notably dry column, with a sharp dry layer setting in above 5,000 feet. No clouds of operational significance are anticipated, and visual meteorological conditions are expected to prevail with unrestricted visibility. Winds are beginning to shift to an east-northeast orientation behind the front, and will continue to increase gradually as the pressure gradient tightens. While surface winds are generally moderate, gusts during the afternoon may peak around 15 knots or slightly higher, particularly at coastal terminals. These gusts may introduce minor crosswind components at east-west runways, especially at locations closer to the Atlantic coast. Looking ahead through the weekend and into early next week, the overarching pattern remains one of stability and dryness, dominated by subsidence aloft from a strong mid-level ridge and persistent high pressure at the surface. Skies will remain predominantly clear, with no risk of precipitation through at least Sunday. Moisture may begin to rebound slightly into early next week, but with ridging still firmly in place, any convective development or cloud bases lowering below visual flight rules criteria is highly unlikely in the short term. One element of concern from an aviation standpoint will be the sustained easterly flow that strengthens over the coming days. Starting Thursday night and continuing into the weekend, expect a persistent breeze off the Atlantic, which could bring steady surface winds in the 10 to 15 knot range with occasional gusts approaching 20 knots, especially during peak heating hours. While not disruptive, this could impact light aircraft handling and will be most notable for approaches and departures with easterly exposures. In summary, visual flight conditions will persist across South Florida through the forecast period, with no concerns for ceilings, visibility, or convective hazards. Breezy easterly surface winds may introduce some minor turbulence or crosswind considerations, but overall, the aviation weather environment remains highly favorable for both regional and commercial operations.
East Central Florida Aviation Weather Summary. Dry post-frontal conditions dominate the region, driven by a stabilizing high-pressure system building across the southeastern United States and gradually shifting offshore. A significantly dry air mass, evident from soundings and satellite observations, supports clear skies and excellent visibility across the region. Pilots can expect unrestricted ceilings and widespread visual flight conditions through the entire short to medium range forecast. Winds will be a key operational factor, particularly along the coast, where daytime heating and the sea breeze will enhance surface wind speeds. North to northeast surface flow will gradually veer easterly by Thursday and become southeasterly into the weekend. While sustained wind speeds will generally remain between 10 and 15 knots, gusts from 20 to 25 knots may emerge during the afternoon along the Atlantic-facing terminals. This may lead to occasional crosswind concerns and moderate mechanical turbulence on final approach, especially during the sea breeze transition period each day. Development will be minimal through Saturday, with some shallow cumulus possible along the sea breeze front each afternoon, though cloud bases will remain well above minimum VFR thresholds. By Sunday into Monday, a subtle uptick in low-level moisture may support isolated cumulus coverage, but ceilings will remain unrestricted, and precipitation is not forecast at this time. There is some model uncertainty heading into midweek next week regarding a potential frontal boundary. However, any associated weather appears unlikely to impact operations significantly at this time. Visibility will continue to be excellent due to the prevailing dry air and absence of surface fog or haze triggers. No convective activity or low ceilings are expected. A gradual warming trend may allow for some modest thermal turbulence aloft during peak heating hours, especially inland, but this remains minor in scope. In summary, a highly favorable stretch of aviation weather continues for East Central Florida with VFR ceilings and visibility, breezy easterly flow impacting low-level operations near the coast, and no precipitation through early next week. The primary consideration for pilots will be managing gusty coastal winds during afternoon transitions and ensuring awareness of sea breeze timing for routing and runway planning.
West Central Florida Aviation. Weather summary. Dry and stable air mass is settling into the region in the wake of a passing cold front, bringing widespread visual flight conditions with no restrictions to ceilings or visibility. Satellite imagery confirms rapid clearing behind the front, and soundings indicate a sharply subsident profile with very low moisture content above the boundary layer, ideal for uninterrupted VFR conditions. Surface winds will remain from the north through the evening, with gusts up to 15 knots during the afternoon, gradually diminishing after sunset. Overnight, with radiational cooling and decoupling of surface winds, conditions become calm and clear. While no fog development is expected due to the dry air mass, early morning temperatures will dip into the 50s, with inland areas north of the Interstate 4 corridor possibly reaching the upper 40s. Into the weekend, high pressure east of the area will maintain control of the regional weather. Easterly winds will slowly take over as the pressure gradient tightens slightly, especially near the coast. Sea breezes may introduce localized afternoon gustiness at coastal terminals, though sustained winds should remain manageable for all aircraft categories. Skies will remain mostly clear through Monday, and no precipitation or significant cloud layers are forecast. The atmosphere will support strong daytime heating with highs nearing 90 degrees inland, but vertical cloud development will remain suppressed by mid-level ridging. Looking ahead to Tuesday, a weak frontal boundary may skim far northern portions of the forecast area, including Levy County. While a stray shower is mentioned in the forecast, any convective development appears isolated and non-disruptive to overall airspace operations at this time. In summary, excellent flying conditions persist across west central Florida, with dry air, unrestricted visibility, and no ceiling or precipitation concerns. Pilots can expect breezy northerly winds tapering into light easterly flow by the weekend, with possible minor turbulence near the coast during sea breeze transitions. Ideal conditions for both general and commercial aviation remain in place through early next week.